If you want to turn your loops into songs, you don't need to escape the loop, you just need to develop it. But you need to develop it like a composer, not a loop maker. Let's take a look at 3 ways to do exactly that. Here's our loop. It's 4 bars long and has 1 chord per bar, except the 4th bar, which has 2. We could just repeat this over and over, but there wouldn't be much for the ear to explore after the first or second repetition. So we will use the first of our 3 ways to develop an idea. We'll turn our blocks into units. Our chords are our blocks. So how can we turn these blocks into units? Let's look at just the first chord. There are a ton of ways you could break these blocks into units, but here is what is jumping out to me. Let's take the bottom 2 notes and turn them into some bass line motion by alternating between them. Now, let's turn the 6 notes above this bass line into 3 pairs of notes. All of these pairs will be a perfect fifth from one another, 7 semitones. This distance will be the guiding force behind how we break our blocks into units. Let's start with G, and we'll pair it with D. G and D are 7 semitones apart, a perfect fifth, forming a nice unit here. Let's create another unit by combining C and G above. These are also 7 semitones apart. We've got 2 more notes remaining in our block, E and B. These are also a perfect fifth apart. Here is where things come to life. Now that we have taken this large block of notes and broken them into smaller units, they are more manageable and we can treat them rhythmically. Let's start our bar off with G and D. Then, on the 8th note in between beats 3 and 4, let's use our second unit, C and G. And then on the 16th note after beat 4, let's play our last unit, E and B. When a chord is played as a block, our ear tends to process it as a crowd of notes. 1 or 2 notes may stand out, but we don't perceive all the notes as individuals. You can't sing a chord. But when we break the notes into smaller units, the notes become individuals or couples, friends or foes, strangers or soulmates. Musically, these smaller units now become characters that exist within a story. They become melody or melodies. Let's see how much of the structure of the units from the first chord we can carry over into our second chord. Let's take the bottom notes, this time the bottom 3 notes, and create bass line motion by cascading upward. Now let's break our remaining notes on top into pairs of perfect fifths, 7 semitones. Let's start with the top note, C, which is where our first chord's melody arrives. We'll pair this with F, 7 semitones below. This is our first pair. Next, let's pair G with D. Once again, these notes are a perfect fifth apart. Our last remaining note in this block is A. Let's pair this note with the note 7 semitones below, D, which we have already used, but nothing is stopping us from making a note a part of 2 pairs. In a way, now G, D, and A form a trio. Let's set these units rhythmically free so that they can escape the anonymity of the chord block and become independent melodic units. Now that we've got an established pattern going, let's just carry it through our remaining chords. We'll turn the bottom notes into a bass line by cascading. The top 3 notes are all 7 semitones, a perfect fifth from one another. This is right in line with our units from our previous chords. Let's use these as 2 pairs. For the final 2 chords in bar 4, we will keep it simple. At this point, we just want to turn the loop back around to the beginning. We'll cascade the bottom notes and syncopate the rhythm. Okay, we've turned our blocks into units, and this has allowed us to take the static chord progression and transform it into something with melodic momentum. But it is still only 4 bars long, which at this tempo of 89 beats per minute is about 11 seconds. 11 seconds is not that long. To me, it's in the range where exact repetitions will quickly become uninteresting because it is too short of a puzzle, too easy of a puzzle for the ear to solve. The solution to this brings us to our second way to develop an idea: octave displacement, or simply put, moving notes up or down by an octave. The notes don't change, so our musical idea doesn't change. But by moving notes up or down by an octave, it allows us to shape the roller coaster ride of our musical idea as it repeats, choosing when and where the highest drops or steepest climbs happen. This is perhaps the most powerful way to develop an idea and also the simplest to implement. Let's double our loop so that we have another copy that we can modify. In our second copy, we will take these 2 pairs of notes and simply move them up an octave. It may seem like this should have almost no effect on the musical idea, but that is exactly the point. We're not trying to change the musical idea. We want it to loop, but we just don't want the entire musical puzzle to be 4 bars, 11 seconds. Now, we loop the idea twice, but there are a couple pieces that only fit in the second repetition, the second half of the now 8-bar, 22-second puzzle. The ear is a super sophisticated pattern detector, so these little modifications keep the ear engaged on a subconscious level. I have also added another pair of notes in the last bar. This was motivated by just using my ear, my instinct. At the end of the day, music is not a calculated process. It is an alchemical dance between the technical and the ineffable. One of my favorite ways to use octave displacement to make my loops maintain interest as they repeat is to aim for a shape that places the highest note of all the repetitions towards the end of the section. We have accomplished this between our first 2 loops. In the first loop, the highest note is in bar 2, and then in the second loop, the highest note is in bar 6. Let's double our loop again so that we have a third and fourth copy, and see if we can keep rising to higher notes in each repetition, giving the entire section a feeling of escalation. In our third repetition, let's shift these 2 notes up an octave. We now have a new highest note. Now that we have risen so high, in order to get back to the beginning of the fourth repetition in bar 13, we need to bridge the gap. So I have repeated some notes to ride back down in bar 12. In the fourth repetition, we'll shift these notes up an octave, which gives us a new highest note for the entire section. This rising highest note becomes a subtle plot for the section that drives the unfolding of the loops forward. We'll use the same idea from the third repetition to bridge the gap as we fall back down in bar 16. Okay, we now have a 16-bar idea, which is about 44 seconds long. Our initial 11-second loop has now grown into a full section. To my ears, this is the max point. If we were to repeat this loop another time, the idea would become redundant. So now, it's time to use our third way to develop an idea, the fork in the road. If you've been going in the same direction over and over, then go another way. This may sound abstract, but this can be very literal. At every point in our section, when we get to the loop point, we move down by one semitone. This is the road we keep going down. We're not looking to create a new musical idea. We just want to explore another side of the same musical journey we are on. This is our fork in the road. And the other way we will go is, instead of moving down by one semitone, we will extend further and move down by 2 semitones. This puts us into a completely different key center and basically throws us into harmonic chaos. None of the material we have created so far will work in the same way. But this is exactly what we want. We are suddenly far from home, and now our singular mission is to get back home. First, we'll need to find a way for these two new notes, F sharp and C sharp, to function harmonically. My ear is pulling me towards anchoring them over D, which turns this into a D major 7 chord. D major 7 is pretty unrelated to the F major realm we have been in up until this point. But again, that's what we want. If we add the 5th of the chord, A, into the mix, we are actually staying connected to the initial idea in a different way. We have perfect fifths, 7 semitones, in the top 2 notes, and now in the bottom 2 notes as well. This distance is what we have been using to create our units from the chord blocks. But now we have a chance to feature perfect fifths in the bottom notes of the chords rather than the top notes. Let's move D and A up 1 semitone to E flat and B flat, while maintaining F sharp and C sharp on top. This actually works. This is E flat minor 7. This chord still has pretty much nothing to do with our original key, but now there is a new motivation. We need to get back to the key of F, or some part of the key of F, so that we can organically transition back to our first idea, our first loop. So let's keep going and see what happens. Let's move E flat and B flat up by 1 semitone again to E and B. Now we have some kind of E chord, but I'm not really concerned with what the chords are called. I just want to maintain the notes on top and move the perfect fifth on the bottom by 1 semitone at a time. As long as it is colorful and keeps the momentum moving, I'm getting what I'm after. At this point, we could go up 1 semitone to F and be back at our target key, but there are 2 things standing in our way. First, if we move the bottom notes to F and C, it would directly clash with the F sharp and C sharp on top. And secondly, even if these notes worked, we would be returning to our original key after only 3 bars. We want this journey on a new path to be more of an exploration, so that the payoff when we return to our first section is satisfying. So let's go back down to E flat and B flat. Now we have a 4-bar idea. Maybe we can use this as a framework that we could repeat. Let's see if, as we repeat it, it brings us to an organic moment to pivot back to our first section and our original key. We'll repeat our idea with our starting point shifted up by 2 semitones. Let's repeat this process again. This is starting to look like a journey back home. Let's repeat it one more time. This is where we have a chance to end the Odyssey. The 3rd chord lands on B flat. This is the 4 chord of F major, our original key. This is our chance to pivot back. We'll linger here for 2 bars, breaking the anticipation of 1 chord per bar that we've been using so far. And then we'll go back to our original idea, our first section. But rhythmically, this is not reflecting the story of our music. We are on a journey back home, but all the chords are sitting static. Let's arpeggiate these chords in a rolling upward cascade to reflect the churning waves of the sea we are traversing to get back to the calm of home. To dive deeper into these kinds of ideas and approaches, and learn how to bring them into your music, check out my Chords That Vibe course bundle. And if you want a full toolkit that gives you instant access to these kinds of chords, drum patterns, bass lines, and melodies, then check out Vible Volume 1. You'll find all the links below. By turning blocks into units, moving notes to different octaves, and going the other way at the fork in the road, we were able to take an initial 4-bar chord progression and coax it into a full idea with multiple sections and variations. Even if we only played the A section, then the B section, and then repeated the A section again, the whole thing would be 48 bars long, which at 89 beats per minute is about 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So, if you are ever thinking that you need to escape the loop, perhaps take a moment to think again. You may already have everything you need to turn that loop into a full song. You may just need to develop the loop like a composer rather than a loop maker. Until next time, farewell.